Hello friends, this is Ahmed Kaja. Welcome to Progressive Enhancement of HTML with Petite-Vue. In this video, we will be using Frameworks Lite for PineGrow, a free and open source PineGrow plugin which I've authored, and it supports Standard View, Petite-Vue, and Alpine.js to add sprinkles of interactions to your mostly static HTML pages. Alpine.js champions the progressive enhancement space, and so does Petite-Vue. They're quite very similar, minor differences. Petite-Vue uses the Vue syntax. So to get started, we can scroll down to the usage section, click on the link to download the plugin, extract the zip file, and there's a file called plugin.cjs which we can import in PineGrow as a plugin. Alternatively, you can also click on the latest release over here, and then scroll all the way to the bottom and download the plugin from here. Now I have PineGrow already open, and I've zoomed my interface a little bit bigger so that it's easy for you to follow. Let's import our plugin. Follow menu option, file, and then click on Manage Libraries and Plugins. And all the way to the bottom, there's Load Plugins. Let's click and then navigate to where you have extracted the plugin and select the plugin.cjs and then add. Click on OK. And the plugin adds a new menu over here called Frameworks. And it displays all the frameworks that's kind of supported. It has a lot of options. We'll go through some of them in this video. Let's click on New Project, and you can notice that Frameworks Lite do come with a bunch of sample pages with interactivity added to the page across Petite-Vue, Alpine.js, and Standard View. So feel free to check out those samples. Let's go with, I'm going to use Tailwind CSS in this demo, but you can use vanilla CSS. Scroll down, use one of our templates, the Spotted Kingfisher. I'll use this one, open that page and save the page first. And I will create a folder for my project, the Spotted Kingfisher, and save the page. PineGrow offers to open that as a project, yes, and I'll update the interactions on this page. Save. I'm going to keep it like mobile width to make sure that you are able to see the screen clearly. And you can notice that the props panel now has an additional section called Petite-Vue directives. And when clicking on Add Directive, it lists all the directives that we can add to a HTML tag to add the interactivity using Vue. Clicking on the frameworks menu, we can choose other frameworks as well. So if this page, in this page, if we choose to use Alpine.js, clicking on that will make sure that the props panel will show Alpine.js directives now. So is Standard View. Now I'm going to go use Petite-Vue, and I recommend you follow this video with Petite-Vue instead of Alpine.js if you're already familiar with Alpine.js, because the syntax is a little different. But you can pretty much replicate this video with Alpine.js without much, much difference. Firstly, let's do a bit of a warm-up. So the first thing we want to do is add the CDN script into our page. There are a couple of ways, actually two primary ways. One is add that as a global app, or add Petite-Vue as independent islands. Now I'm not going to cover the second one because it's quite advanced. It lets you use islands architecture, which is very popular in the JavaScript framework side, like Isles and Astro and those sort of frameworks. And also Lemon-T has a package for it. So I'm going to not cover that in this video. We'll go with the global app, and the one that you see on the top is the simplest. The CDN script gets added to your head tag. Let me show you. Click on it, and I am going to open this in code view, and we can notice that Petite-Vue the CDN script is here, and there's a differ and init. Differ is same as Alpine.js. Um, it it lets the browser download the script asynchronously and initiate after the HTML page DOM is kind of loaded. While the init is a Petite-Vue thing, because Alpine.js doesn't have that init attribute, as far as I know. I could be wrong. What Petite-Vue does is it lets you initialize the JavaScript, the Petite-Vue library, on demand. So with the init attribute, it's automatic, but without the init attribute, you can manually initialize the JavaScript, which we'll have a look. So I'll close this, and once we insert, have the script added to our page, we can mark sections of our page to use for the Petite-Vue to use by way of adding a directive called vscope. So when we add vscope, then we can use Petite-Vue in that subtree. So I'm going to delete it. So to clear the what's in the text box here, we use the cross button. To delete that attribute, use the menu here, context menu here to remove it. Cool. I am not going to use this one. I'm going to use Petite-Vue in a different way. Delete this tag and save. And let's look at what is the other option. The other option is we can add Petite-Vue as a module script or a classic script. Now module script is the script tag with type equal to module, while classic script is like the legacy one. There are some key differences between these two. I'm going to go with a sample example, sample state and template. Let's click on that. And you will notice that there's a script tag added, and as well as an example just below that added to your body. Let's open that script tag, and I will maximize that a little bit. Let me walk you through this. So we are using Petite-Vue, importing the create app, and this state is an object. It's a JavaScript object, nothing to do with Vue. It has a bunch of properties, count, and it also has a getter, and which acts like a computed property, like our first name is something, last name is something. In order to combine those two, you can do first name dot last name in an Excel sheet. It's quite similar to that. So this value will keep changing depending on the other value, the count. We're checking odd or even, and we have two methods, increment and decrement, and we create the Petite-Vue app with this initial state and mount it. And in this example here, this is the scope of this Petite-Vue app. You can notice that there's a vscope attribute on it, and with an additional state called message, which can also get added to what was passed. And let me go into, so by default Pinegrow is in edit mode. I'll go into click mode, and we should be able to increment or decrement and also change this text, and you can see that it's kind of reflecting in the tag below that. I wouldn't go through this example. I'll probably let you go through it. We'll learn by actually building something real. So I'm going to delete this. And what are we going to build today? So we could actually go with a form to capture users' email who are interested in subscribing to our newsletter on endangered species. So I'm going to click on insert, and for this demo I'm going to use Flowbyte blocks via the library panel, and scroll down and let's search for newsletter. They do have some blocks for newsletter sections. Click on it, and let's look at what's available for free. So there's a very simple one here. I'm going to drag and drop that into my body tag, maybe just below the script tag. And you can see that it's a very simple one. It captures the email, and then we click on subscribe to submit the email to some server to trigger that whole workflow. I'll go into edit mode, and let's look at this block. It has a form and a button. A button is of type submit. I am going to change it to button because we want to not submit the form, rather we want to use the click buttons click action to do some validation on the email, and then also subscribe by sending the email to a server. So with regards to emails subscription, there are a couple of solutions available. One is, we could run a WordPress instance, and I've got a admin panel open here. We could use something like MailChimp for WordPress, connect our API key, have a list created in MailChimp, and have the subscription set in at WordPress end. But the challenge, limitation with this is because it's a plugin, we can't access and submit subscription through REST API, because we want to stay as HTML page. We don't want to turn this into a WordPress site. We want to keep it simple. The other option is directly dealing with MailChimp. It's a very popular marketing service, but most of the mailing service do not allow client-side API integration because of cost issue. I would recommend you to learn about it. It's a sort of security feature. So they generally allow API endpoints to be called from a server. So what are the options we've got? I do not want to invest a lot in terms of running a WordPress instance just for the simple use case. And obviously I can't directly use MailChimp on my HTML page. One solution is with Google, specifically Google's Sheets. So I am already logged into my Google account, and scroll down to Google Sheets, and let's open Google Sheets and click on a blank spreadsheet. And I'm going to call this spreadsheet newsletter, and create two columns called email and also date subscribed. And with that done, we'll have to use extensions and create an app script. I'm going to wait, click on extensions and app script. We have to create an app script. That opens a separate tab, and we have to write some app script to post that email address in our spreadsheet. Now I'm going to use ChatGPT because I do not want to go through the process of creating all the scripts, which can be learned outside Petite-Vue tutorial. I want to keep this video really short, so I'm going to ask ChatGPT, help me with Google app script, web app that can be used to collect emails from users who would like to subscribe to my newsletter. Cool. Let's see what it comes with. And Google Sheets, we already done that. Newsletters, we have already done that. We've got one row with a header called email, and it's given me some code, and let's go through it. There's a do post function, and that has some data in JSON format because it came from a post API request from our page that contains an email. There's some validation of the email, and there's a function down here which is using rejects, and if it is not valid, send an error message back, or append that as a new row, and also send a response back to the client. And the whole thing is within a try catch so that we can be safe. Let's copy this, and I'll go back to my scripts page and paste that in here. Cool. And I'll save it as well. and I'll call it newsletter and rename it. Now this is standard JavaScript. In addition to the email address being added to a row, I also will add the current date because we have a second column as well. Now let's come back here. So we would be getting the email and a date subscribed. And what we have to do now is deploy this, and we have a selected type here of the deployment. Click on this and then say web app, and I'm going to call this newsletter, and who has access, anyone, and deploy. And it asks me to authorize access. I'm going to go through that process and pause and go through that process, and I'll come back in a second. By the way, you would have receive one of these dialogues. You'll have to click on advance and continue, and then allow and provide access. And now our web app is deployed for free with Google Sheets, and we've got a URL, and we can post to this endpoint from our HTML page. I'm going to copy this and deployment ID. I'll come back to this. Let's get back to our app, shall we? So we've got this, and let's get into adding our sprinkles of interactions, which is capturing this email address. So I'll open the script tag, and let's define the state for our form. So there's a count variable. We need to capture the email, and let's keep it empty to start with. This computed, I am going to remove it for now because we are not going to use it. Once we capture the email address, we have to check whether it's valid or not. I'm going to save the validity under a variable called property called valid. And when you're working on this state object, remember to add a comma at the end because it's an object and it's not like a list of JavaScript statements. Valid, and we would also need a validate function similar to this increment function. So I'll change this to validate, and what we need to do here is validate whether that email address is valid. I'm going to keep it blank for now, and then once it's valid, we have to subscribe. And this one again, like, I'll keep it blank for now. If it is valid, we don't have to show any inline error message. We just have to subscribe and show an outcome. But if it is invalid, then we might have to display an inline error message, something like please enter a valid email address, and then remember to add the comma at the end. So this is an invalid message, and we also, so the message, I'm going to save it as a separate property, and this message can be an invalid message or an outcome message or any of those. I think this is good for now, and I'm going to save this and close our script tag. Now that our state is defined, let's get to this section. We could vscope anywhere, but I'm going to do it at the form level because that's what we're working on, and come down to add a vscope directive to that particular form. And then first let's select our email text field. This has to use the state called email. Now we can do a two-way binding with using the directive called vmodel. And we want to do a two-way binding to email. Now, how do I know what is entered here is actually getting saved in the state? What we could do is we could just simply add a p tag below, and when we want to use view state, we have to enclose it within double mustache, and then we'll say we'll display the email. Now you would notice that it's kind of showing the code instead of the value. It's because we are adding directives and we'll have to refresh the page because it's a JavaScript. One way to automatically refresh is using the frameworks menu and then adding auto reload on update. Most of the scenarios when adding directives, it'll refresh the page automatically. But when adding textual content, it doesn't refresh automatically. We'll have to manually do it. Now what happens, so Pine pages are generally by default is in edit mode. I'll click on this icon to go into click mode, and now let's enter our email address. I'm going to say ahmed.kaja@email.com, and you can notice that yes, our input text box is two-way binded to that state, and that's why the p tag below is actually displaying the same state, which means we have actually connected it correctly. I'll remove this p tag for now. Now what we want to do is validate the particular email address that's getting entered here. So that will be on clicking this button, and let's add a function. We have to call the validate function, which we can bind by using the v on click. I'll add the prevent as well, and by clicking a button we are calling validate function, and validation happens, and the validation either is valid or invalid, which we need to figure out. Now what validation we'll have to run, we're checking whether the email is valid. So I'll select the script tag, and I'm going to use ChatGPT for this. I'm going to say modify the validate function. Do not forget to select the script tag because the validate function is under that. I'll keep it on the side. Validate function to validate the email address. I think that should do, because it should read the object and figure out that there's a valid property, and it should set the invalid message. And if invalid, set message to invalid message. All right, let's try doing that. It's doing its thing, and it's updated that tag. I'm going to reopen it and let's check. Yep, so it's doing the same sort of regex test on the email that was entered by the user, and the message now is set as invalid message. Now in JavaScript, when we are dealing with an object, in order to refer to another property within another property within another property of the same object, we'll have to use this. Hence the validate method is to access message and invalid message. It's using this dot message equal to this dot validate message, invalid message. Now that our validation is done, we also want to set whether it's valid or not, right? So let's set this dot valid value. Now, so if it is valid, let's modify this. We're checking for the happy scenario here. It's valid, in which case we'll say this dot valid is equal to true. Else we will set the message to invalid message, and before that we will set this dot valid is equal to false. And don't add any comma here because these are statements within this function. If it is valid, we also want to call the subscribe function, which is down here, which we haven't defined yet. All right, so we have added the validation, save, and then now let's test it out. Go into click mode, I'll do a refresh, and then let's test it out. TKK, and then I'm going to click on subscribe. The validation did fail, but we'll have to display that message somewhere. So I'll go into edit mode, select this text box, and how are we doing with regards to styling? So there's a div here, and there's a how does it look in a bigger screen? It's side by side, so we would want to show the error message just above it. I'm going to add a p tag just above it, p, and then we'll display the message. And let's refresh, and now let's try again. Some random text, and then click on subscribe, and you can see that the message was set to invalid message and it's getting displayed just above. I think there's a lot more styling that can be done, but I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'll open the floating panel, which can also be opened with a double shift, and I'll set the size of this text a little small, and then also the color of it to red because it's an error message. All right, save. I'll go back to mobile screen. All right, so we are displaying it just above that text field, and we are asking the user to fix it. What if, so we need to also clear that up. So if we enter a valid email, it should set the valid true, and it should also clear the this dot message to reset it back to empty, because we want that gone off the screen. All right, so let's do a refresh, and it's tkk.gmail, it's incomplete. We'll get an error message. .com, it's a valid one, it should vanish. So it's valid. So validation is complete, which is good. And now we can go into the subscribe function, which is subscribing, pushing this email address to a Google Sheet. And there are further integrations we can do. Let's now define our subscribe method, where we are going to push that email address to a Google Sheet. I'm going to again use ChatGPT for this. Modify the subscribe function to post via REST API the email address to a Google App Script. Keep placeholder for the URL, and use ES6, ES5, ES6. That's just the await async await format. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got an output, and let's reopen our script tag. Look at the subscribe function. It's not updated. I think we might have to try again. Let me close this, select the script tag, and I will try again. Modify the subscribe function to post the email address to Google App Script. Keep placeholder, and let's click on a new task. It's going through the process, and now let's open the script to see what happened. Okay, so it's a fetch call, and it's posting. There are headers, and the body is sending the email, which is that this dot email is what we're going to send. And we would want to await it, modify. Okay, so what we want to do is the fetch call could either be a success or failure. Let's create some success message, and I'm going to say your subscription, you have been subscribed to the newsletter. Please check your email to confirm. All right, so that's a success message, and do not forget the comma. And then failure message would be, and I'm going to keep it generic for now. An error has occurred. Try again later. Cool. And then a comma. Don't forget the comma. And let's now ask ChatGPT to follow up. Modify the subscribe method to handle success and failure outcomes, and update message to message accordingly. Let's see if it actually intelligently picks these two. Use async await, async await. I'm not a fan of the whole async call with that then, and it's kind of branching out. Follow up. Let's see what happens now. And did it run? Hasn't modified it. I'm going to something to do with ChatGPT maybe. Let's run this again. Rerun this command. It's taking a little longer. Let's see if it did anything. Cool. So we've got an async await, and it's calling our REST API and post, and then sending the body, the email in the body. If response is okay, message will be success message. If response is not okay, it'll be a failure message. And we also putting enclosing the whole thing in try catch, which is good. Now let's come to our Google Sheet, copy this URL and replace that here, and fingers crossed it should work. Save, close, and let's do a refresh. And now let's enter email address. TechAK, validated, enter valid address. Okay, still not valid, same error, .com, and subscribe. And it should have ideally done the, okay. So you have been subscribed to the newsletter. Please check to confirm. Okay, I think there's a typo there. Check your email. Check your email to confirm. All right, save. That's good. But the key thing is, like, the important thing is our API call is successful. Let's go to our sheet and double check if we've got it. Refresh, and not sure, it's not here. Come on, it's kind of loading. I'm not sure what's happening with my internet today, and it hasn't come through. I probably know why it is. Let's go to our script. You could see that there's a sheet name here, and let's make sure our sheet name is correct. So I'm going to copy this and come back here and then rename my sheet to make sure that we are using the right sheet names. And then let's try again now. But what I want to do now is I want to make sure that this is in green and not red, because it's a success message. I'm not sure why Google Docs actually accepted it, because it shouldn't have, because there's no sheet by that name previously. How do we change this now to green? So we'll have to make it conditional. I've got some idea. There are different ways to do it. Let's open our script tag, and we could actually use computer property now, like a getter. So we can create a getter called success, similar to order even for the count with our example, and let it add a comma to it, and then we can say return this dot msg is equal to this dot success message, because we already set this up on success over here. So this will be returning true if it is success or not. So let's save this. And how can we conditionally change the class here, show it in green if it is a success message? Petite-Vue provides another directive called to bind classes. I'm going to go with vbind class array, and then let's expand a little bit. And what it can do is it can check on a variable and set the class conditionally. So on success, we want that to be text green 500, because at the moment we have set it text red 500. If not, we want text red 500. In addition to that, it can take other classes as well. Like it can be handy sometimes if you want to always add it. And let's now enter, save. And then also remove this text red 500, and let's give it a shot now. I'm going to refresh, go into click mode, and one thing to notice is when we actually refresh the page, you'll notice that the MSG seem to flash. So because it's a value that hasn't been set before the page JavaScript is initialized. So one way to avoid that flashing is to add another directive called a cloak, which is quite similar to Alpine JS cloak. Let's add it. And the technique is the same. We'll have to add a style to the header. So our plugin makes it easy, frameworks a menu, and say add vcloak inline style. And what it does, it adds a style to the head of our page that vcloak can use. Let's refresh, and now let's try it out. Take invalid address, and now let's say I got a valid address and I want to subscribe. Now you'll see that it's trying to do the API post, and we have got a successful message, but now it's green. And if it was not a success, then it would be in red. Cool. And now let's go back here, and there you go. So we have submitted our email address. We have captured the subscriber to our newsletter in our Google Sheet, which is amazing. And using the Google app scripts, and it's looking good. I'm kind of happy with it. We can do more, obviously, because this workflow is generally a little, there are different branches to it. But I think for now, like we have achieved what we wanted with Petite-Vue. Let's select these two, and just before the footer, I'll add a section, and move those two down here under the new section. And you would be wondering, like, on script tag supposed to be at the end of the body tag close. It's kind of in the middle, and that's a beauty of module scripts, which is type equal to module. They are deferred by default, and they can be anywhere within the page because they are all asynchronously initialized. So we've got a page here that's working good, and we can push it to Netlify now. And let me right click and publish. And let's select a site. I'm going to go with a new one, and I'm going to say the spotted kingfisher, and create. And surprisingly, no one has taken that name. And preview. Publish, actually. Publish. And let's go to this published site over here and scroll down. The styling has to be fixed. Let's test it out. I want to say something at something, and check. Validate. It's not valid email address. Can you please fix it? .com, and subscribe. An error has occurred. Let's test it out. What's going on? Access from origin, control origin cause issue. So this is the same cause issue. Let me see if I can troubleshoot it. All right, fast forward. I did check ChatGPT to help me fix the cause issue. But after a couple of tries, it didn't really actually work for me. So what I ended up doing is check other sources, including GitHub pages, and then I did figure out a fix for it. So in our script tag, when we call the API, we can add a mode and set it to no cause and save. And now since we updated code, we need to make sure that it's redeployed. So I'm going to publish it again to Netlify. The same app, publish. All right, now let's retest it. Here's our thing. I'll also open the console, and let's go scroll down and try again. Someone, it will not be valid, so somewhere.com, and subscribe, and it's trying to post, and we still got a response, which means the cost issue at least is fixed. uh, and but we still did not get a okay. All right, let's check our spreadsheet. We did capture it, so our API call was successful, but it's just that the response doesn't seem to come back with what we said over here. Ideally, it should have sent a success. I need to troubleshoot this, but what I'm going to do at the moment is, again, like this is autoscope for Petite-Vue. I am going to focus on getting this done. So I'll come back here, and then I'll assume that if the response is okay, if we get a response at all, then we will actually set it to success message. And if there's no response, in which case it'll actually error out in the catch, it'll be a failure message. I think that should kind of complete our app page for now. Let me republish it again and publish. And what I might do meanwhile is take the script as well and then add it as a page here, new file, app Google script, G script, I'll call it .js, and I'll paste that in here so that you've got that for your reference. When I push this to GitHub, I'll have to publish it again with that. All right, and then we can now test our page. Let's refresh, testing if my email address is right. It's not at somewhere.com. We did get a response, therefore ideally we should get a success message, which is great. And now I've got that emails subscribers in my Google Sheet. Now the beauty of this method is I can now ask ChatGPT, modify my script to include Google reCAPTCHA and to connect to my MailChimp audience list. And what ChatGPT is going to do is include updates to our script, so we'll have to register reCAPTCHA and then also modify our script to add MailChimp as well as reCAPTCHA. But the key thing is this again. So what we are doing here is we are connecting MailChimp to our Google Sheet, and from here, when there is an update and when we are adding a row, we could actually add a row into MailChimp where we can trigger marketing emails and a lot of other things. This way, we can use MailChimp without a server by using Google Spreadsheet. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think we've done a good job here. And we kept it really simple. Now, there are a lot of other scenarios where this can come in, adding progressive enhancement to your HTML page can come in handy. There are other directives as well. For example, we can loop, which is not recommended to do on a client side, but there are some scenarios where from client side we are fetching API data to display, and also other directives like VF, VLs, and a lot of other ones. I'll let you learn them on your own. Check out Petite-Vue documentation, and we could actually we could have even used Alpine.js instead of Petite-Vue, but I'm a Vue fan, so hence Petite-Vue. So until now, we have been using one Petite-Vue app for the whole page. What I mean by that is, if there was other parts of this page that requires interactivity, we can use Petite-Vue, and we can extend the state, and then like what we did before, we can mark certain sections with a vscope, and then do what we just did. In which case it might make sense to move this and keep it separate because it's like a global app across the page instead of keeping it along with this scope. Um, that said, just for completeness purpose, I'll quickly touch on this other way. Ideally, if we are going with independent islands instead of one global app, like what we did till now, what we would be doing is instead of adding this global app, I'll delete this. I'm just kind of demoing it. Don't have to follow it. When we add an independent island, I'm going to again go with the module script. You would notice that it applied, it added two islands. This is one app, which is a hero script app, and then there's a scope attached only to this app. Instead of this app applying for the whole page, it'll be only to this app, into the scope. So this is an app. Let me open the script tag. It's quite simple, the same old state, and it's kind of getting mounted. Previously, when we were using one global app, we didn't have anything to mount here. It was just mounting on the whole page, or all the V scopes that we have defined. But here it specifically mounts into this particular scope with an ID hero island. And similarly, there's also a feature app. Let me open that. Again, it's just a very simple one, just a message, and it's kind of getting mounted on a div with the ID feature island, which is just below that. And then if I now look at this, it's got an ID feature island, and this app is again exclusive for this island. So technically, if we have to use the count or any of these, it won't work if we try binding any of those state within this other scope. It has to be with the app that it was defined with. And that's what islands are. It's sort of an interesting pattern where you could, I'll undo to go back, where you could, keep the apps and the scopes together. It kind of helps with keeping them co-located, and that's the advantage of islands. And it's also a sort of a design principle, and it's quite popular with Astro and Isles and JavaScript frameworks like that. The advantage of defining islands within your page, islands of interactivity, is that you can control as to when they can be loaded and hydrated, which is what is popularly called partial hydration. So if you're looking at all these comments, I've added this specifically to differentiate all this. Give it a read if you want, if you're interested in this advanced topic of islands architecture. But that's it. So just one last topic to cover. We touched on islands, and we also touched on the partial hydration one, and 11T, which is an static site generator, has a package similar to the Petite-Vue or Alpine.js CDN script, which we can add it to a page. And I'll quickly show this. It wouldn't take much time. So what you notice is there's an app called Island from 11T, and that's just a CDN script, and I'm going to use a sample integration, and there's a small example here, which is a picker day date picker. Like if you want a date picker to be added to your page, for example, booking appointments and things like that, you can use this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to my page as an island, and it will get added to the bottom of the page, towards the end of just before the body close. And let me go into this, and you can see that it's just below the footer, and it's got a date picker over here. And what does it mean? So let's open this page in an external browser, and this might be the best way to look, for me to explain it. As you can see, I have opened the network tab, and I've selected JavaScript, and I'm going to refresh the page, and we can see that Island from 11T is downloaded. Pingo interactions, and I've got two that are browser extension. Petite-Vue got downloaded. These two are redirects. And you would notice that, PKD did not download. If I delete this, and you would have seen this in Astro demo, which is one of those islands architecture based frameworks. The PKD will get downloaded and then initialized on visible. So when it gets closer to the footer, you would notice that the PKD downloaded, and we've got a date picker that's active. Now, for a simple static HTML page, do we need that level of control in terms of when JavaScript has to be downloaded and initialized to the big question? Maybe you've got a complex, HTML page, static page. Give it a shot. The best way to learn about this is under sample integrations. There's a link here that takes you to Levante Islands documentation, where the author have actually got two videos on YouTube, which pretty much goes through what I just went through in quite in details. So I would highly recommend you to learn this. It's a very popular architecture that's popularized by frameworks like Astro and Isles. So give it a shot. I'm going to keep my page simple. So I'm going to delete these progressive hydration part, unless you want to use Pika date picker. And then we've got one app here, which is with regards to our email subscription. Before wrapping up, I will do one quick fix to something that's Tailwind specific. You remember this form where we are showing that p tag, the inline error message in red or green using class binding. Because Tailwind might actually miss scanning this, and it scans only class attributes and not colon class, which means which is the expression that's kind of bound. It might miss these Tailwind classes that are within this expressions in class bindings and other expressions. So we might need to include a hack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really simple. Any classes that I'm using, I'll add it in a span, and I'll say it text green 500, and also text red 500. And since it doesn't have any width, it should not show up. And I also will add a name, a data attribute on it. I'll call it safe list, so that I remember what this is. And this should make sure that just in case Tailwind internal compiler of Pinegrow misses it, those classes are still bundled using the internal just-in-time compiler. Now, apart from that, the Pinegrow plugin, I've actually updated it, the README file of it. So click on this to open the YouTube video that you are watching now, and all the way in the bottom, there's also a section where I've documented, under a section called development contributions. It kind of walks through the structure of this repo. And if you want to add a new framework, like for example, I've heard HTMX might be a good candidate to it. You can actually follow this instructions, fork this repo, and then you can add your own framework. So give it a shot. Send a PR if you want it merged here, or if you want to use it for your personal purpose. Hopefully you had fun. You learned something interesting. And please share your comments and feedback and any ideas in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.